Good evening. This is Ronald Allen, Managing Change. And today's discussion, I'd like to share with you positive leverage, how we can use the way that we approach situations and how we look at the necessary outcomes that we would like the other person and certainly ourselves to experience. In many cases, our ability to communicate is clouded by a rush to get a result. We want to quickly get a win. And in doing so, we assume that the other person that we're talking to or a group of people that we're speaking with understand our intentions, hear clearly our words, interpret the way we have already processed the information, and will execute accordingly. And this discussion really is for managers and supervisors. I know in many cases, certainly in my days of managing people, I would think that I need to speak very clearly. I would ask confirming questions, make sure that my behavior that day, that morning, as we know, 80% of communication is nonverbal. I would ensure that my behavior, my motions were in line with what I was about to ask and what I was about to engage in. What we've found, and good evening, Amber. I apologize, my eyesight is terrible. Adrian, how are you? Great to see you. Thanks for joining in. We're talking about positive leverage in communications with, and this discussion really is for the managers and supervisors and those who have to work with different groups of people and engage in meaningful discourse. And the way that we're looking at it is not just in the way that we communicate. It's not just in how we speak to people. It is rather the actions that we're trying to generate after we've engaged, after we've delivered our information. And what we've found in our studies, good afternoon, Miles, how are you? Thanks for joining, appreciate that. What we've found is that a lot of us, when we speak, we think the recipient understands our intentions, the order in which we've spoken, and certainly in what we would like them to do. Well, alas, and the proof is in the pudding, all you have to do is see how successful that communication was, what percentage of compliance, if you will. Now, this is where it gets tricky, and this is where I want to kind of leave you with some opportunity to explore for yourselves. What was the pushback? Why do you think that other person or group of people didn't necessarily believe or follow to the extent that you wanted? And in feeling that feedback, how did you respond? You see, what's interesting about communication is, number one, it's highly underrated. And number two, it's highly oversimplified in its nuances. So here's a case in point. Working with two project managers today, and one's an industrial engineer. Now, I don't know about you, but I want qualification and clarification of exactly what does that mean from that person's perspective. Not a dictionary, not what I've read, not from the German Bauhaus of design that's given us all these ergonomically designed appliances and chairs, even the chair I'm sitting in. And many people don't necessarily understand that the communication that you're expecting is blocked because people don't know what you know, and they don't use it in the same way. The other gentleman runs logistics, and he's an analyst. Okay, he's not the person that drives the truck. He's not the dispatcher, right? He's not the individual that completes the form to say, okay, guys, this is our order of work. He is the analyst to make sure that the execution is optimized, right? So they're moving freight. They're making sure certain truck capacity is in a certain location because they know that there's going to be a rush or a need for that particular type of truck for that utilization. And what I found was I would ask them to give me their meaning of what we were doing, what we were talking about I teach project management. So that's what it is. And so I would ask them, well, what does that word mean in your world? So two simple words, project and program. Now I ask you, in your world, even if you're a ballerina, right? Even if you're a ballerina, what does project mean to you? What does program mean to you? And this is actually, I stumbled on a pretty interesting example. A program might be a section of what the ballerina is going to perform, part of a program. Whereas a project, they are part of the project of putting on the performance, which has a program that has certain phases to it. So right there, I asked for clarification. And in doing that, the conversation blossomed. They took ownership. Remember, we talk about accountability, responsibility. Accountability, responsibility is not about telling someone, this is your charge, this is your march. It's about having them wanting to be engaged and then taking on responsibility because they understand and they hear it and they feel it. And we begin to exchange this information in a way that I need clarification, you need clarification. I go a step further, you've come a step further. You have taken me in a direction I wasn't aware of. That is positive leverage in communications. We still think, many people still think, I have to have the upper hand. I have to be creating gambits that maneuver people to do what I want. It is truly amazing, and even at my age, I've been around the sun a few times, so many people still march to that old industrial, my way, the highway, carrot stick, micromanagement, even in families. So today's discussion actually does deal with families, and I've had to make some notes. Many of you may know that I'm studying under a number of different people, a number of different theologies. No, well, I shouldn't say theology. Let me correct that. Methodologies in coaching. And the reason is I have my experience in life. And if I keep going in that direction that I have been conditioned or programmed, I miss the richness of complementary methodologies, psychology. We spoke about, oh my goodness, chinobiology, which is synchronizing timelines. And we talked about circadian rhythm. Well, if you don't study that stuff, let's say you don't know it. And if you don't study it, you won't know the benefits that it could derive for you. Then you're also missing the advances in additional studies that are only now coming to light, and their usefulness, application, we talk about rubber meeting the road, their application for you and your life. So my studying under these different groups and topics and subjects, then I can bring my existing experience, my experiential self, what I think is the interpretation of how we can use it in the marketplace, work, life, love, family, brothers and sisters, children, mothers and fathers, certainly in the professional world. Because my new, I should say, interpretation of life is that we are consistent. We don't have to change personalities. We don't have to change styles to get people to do things. Rather, we're looking to optimize by learning different methodologies and styles, and gambits, right? So positive leverage, influence or power used to achieve a desired result. So here's another exercise. You know, I love these little exercises I like to share with you. What if you, for the next day, just the hours that you have to leave and go out to work, what if you said, I'm not only going to be positive, I'm going to give them a reason to be positive. I'm going to talk with my people, and even the people that manage me. How about that? You know, we talked about managing your manager, okay? Find out what their charge is. What are their hot buttons? What do they have to report to their upline? And you go ahead and make sure within your sphere of influence, in your area of responsibility, over and above your job description, how you can affect change. Thank you, guys. Malcolm, good afternoon. Thanks for joining in. How can you affect in a positive way with constructive objectives that the other person can engage with you, right? They can give you their input, their perspective, and then you both can say, okay, is this a path we want to pursue? Now, if you're being supervised by someone, what if you said to them, well, okay, supervisor, would you confirm that this is a process that we can follow? Is this something that we can develop? So now you're asking for their input. You're clarifying communications. That's absolutely imperative. That's absolutely beneficial to all parties. It's not simply a matter of those that supervise or are being supervised. What about colleagues? What if you said to them, thank you very much, Miles. What if you said to them with colleagues now, okay? We're working on a project. We're supposed to design artwork. We're supposed to work on a press kit. We're putting together a conference and certain people have to come. We're making sure that they are addressed properly, they are accommodated properly, even let's say a hotel, right? What if you said to your colleagues, can you give me some ideas on facilitating this catering hall event? Can you give me some ideas of different designs? Where can I go for some different designs? And sit down with them. Spend some time. Show them that you are interested. What would that do to the relationship to your supervisor? Could you manage your supervisor from that perspective? Could you manage the micromanager by taking away his influence of dumbing on one person, drumming on one person? What if you saw that and you said, hey, how can I help you? How can I be of help so that we solve these issues? We manage our manager, because let's face it, after a while, if someone has to be so dogmatic, they're going to come after another person, and then the whole group is intimidated. I've seen this in highly sophisticated organizations, in fact, healthcare organizations. And we're not just talking about the doctor, but the administrator has a very dogmatic approach to things. And when they divide and conquer, everybody loses. So when we talk about positive leverage, it is the desired outcomes that create the optimized results that empowers everybody and embraces everybody, collaborative efforts, so that we all walk away at the end of the day with, wow, not bad, pretty cool. Hey, I can come back and do this again tomorrow. As opposed to, how can I get out of here at 4:58? Right? So we view situational problems. Is it a supervisory issue? Is it a resource issue? Right? We look at viewing situational problems. Is it communication? How are these people? Why is there friction? How can I help to make the relationship easier so my work environment is more pleasant? What a concept. When I managed people in mortgage banking, the salespeople were just about sales. And I would say to them, let me ask you a question. When your client doesn't have all the paperwork, or dribbles, we call it dribbling the paperwork in, a pay stub here, a bank statement there, an incomplete bank statement when it has 4 pages, they give you 3. How do you feel? How does that make you feel? How does that make your job? When you go home at night, now I would connect. Right? I do this with people when they say, that's just soft skills. I say, you have any children? How soft is that communication, the need to communicate? So you take them out of the realm of the business and bring them into a very personal environment, the dynamics changes. So when we view situational problems, I'd say to them, well, when the client brings you half-baked paperwork, how does that make you feel? Are you duplicating that behavior to your processor, to the underwriter, and that's why your loans are taking longer to process? When we talk about quality control, the specs, right? In sports, athletes perform the same process over and over and over. What are they doing? They're listening to their bodies. They're feeling the movement that will optimize the result objectives, what we talked about before. Elevating explanations, realizing thought. Now, this is a tricky one. Elevating explanations. I want you to move that box from there to there. That's one way of explaining what you want someone to do. Soften the atmosphere. Yes, absolutely, Malcolm. Need to soften the atmosphere. I like that. Elevating the explanations. Michael, would you please move that box because I have a herniated disc. I have a problem lifting. I'll help you so that we can get this information over here so I can work with it. Now, some people might say, oh man, that's a whole lot of conversation. Then those people are not ready for this kind of environment. They're not ready. Remember, coaching and mentoring and situational leadership is bringing people along. But people have to be ready, willing, and recognize the benefits for them. With him, what's in it for me? And as we've seen in sales, a buyer and seller may have very different desirable outcomes than just price, dollars and cents. In fact, many high-end products have nothing to do with price whatsoever. It's strictly an experience. Albert, Starbucks. Albert, Neiman Marcus. Albert, buying a Bentley, as long as you can afford it. Right? So we elevate the explanation so that we engage the person. Realizing thought. The other person saying, okay, they are considerate. I'll give you an example. The other day we walked into a store. The person was clearly having a terrible day. And I went and I bought a penny chew or I think it was a mint. And my wife looked at me and said, oh, here he goes again. And I went over to the person. I said, I know you're having a bad day. And I don't want you to think I took this from the counter. I showed them the receipt and I gave it to them. I said, if this makes your day better, I hope it does because I see you're in a lot of pain. Before I left, the manager came out. The manager came out and said, I am going to do that every time I see one of my employees having a bad day. You only own something when you give it away. You're only yourself when you act in your natural manner. There's a program we work with people and it's called, oh my goodness, identify what you're naturally drawn to. We're so afraid now and for a while in just being ourselves. We have been so steeped in artificial meaning and engagement and discourse, many of us don't even know how to come back. Elevating explanations, why I'm doing something. I respect you to give you that time and effort. 5-10 seconds, my goodness. It takes longer to open up a packet of cigarettes and they cost so much more and it's killing you. And then realizing thought is the other person's, you see it in their face. They're like, wow, this person is a human being. Can we even use that expression today? You're a human being. We use it in our actions. And then rewarding behavior. Again, we spoke earlier when I started. Accountability, responsibility. And the rewarding is a better atmosphere. Malcolm was listening on our discussion today, and he said improving the atmosphere, right? That's what we are about. Now, the big trick, the big tamale is you may not get a nice response. That person may just be having a terrible day. They may be in a terrible disposition. They may just be ugly, right? The ugly stick got them for a couple of days, weeks, months, years. We are the only creature on the planet that can think a thought and literally change our physiology. That's the level of studies I'm driving at. And we need to bring it to rubber meets the road where everybody can use this stuff. I'm a big proponent. I'm going to finish with this. I'm a big proponent with project management, being taught to kids. Why? It's process. It's identifying process groups, utilizing knowledge areas, which you can always grow on. And we see kids very young being very intelligent. And then the test is in the process, those 49, now the 6th edition, 49 processes. So, today's program, positive leverage. Hopefully you can use, not hopefully, you can use much of this. We use it, but in the South you still hear, I appreciate that. Thank you, Malcolm. Absolutely. Regionality is obviously an ingredient, right? You go from different cultures, different nationalities, different countries. And of course, in the United States, every state itself is a different experience. And you can use it if you choose to take back and manage your state. This is Ronald Allen, Managing Change. You know where to find me. Thank you very much, Malcolm. You have a great evening. I'll be in touch.